Originally, I didn't really know what culture was, even though I was doing it. And so the way I looked at it is, okay, I'm spending more time with these people than I spend with my family because I'm at work 8 hours a day. And then I had young children at the time. And so you get home and it's just crazy nuts. And whew, I got them to bed. And now I'm exhausted and I'm going to bed. And then we start another day. So my whole thing was I have to really enjoy the people I work with, and I want to have fun at work because I'm spending so much time here. And so, and I kind of have a confession, I am a little bit of a workaholic. So, I spent a lot of time there too. And it was like, but it has to be fun. I am spending more time with these people than even with my own family. So let's at least have a good time.
Welcome to the LeaderPass Studios executive series Behind the Leadership Curtain. I'm your host, Jamie Minton, and today we have the pleasure of sitting down with Sheri Spencer Bachman, a transformative leader in the pest control industry. Sheri entered the world of pest control by helping her father modernize a small business, only to fall in love with the industry herself. Over the years, Sheri not only grew the company significantly, but also became a mentor and a coach, helping others in the industry and beyond to achieve their business success. Join us as Sheri shares her journey from systematizing a local business to becoming a respected coach who empowers others to reach new heights, all while emphasizing the importance of company culture and personal development. Sheri, it is great to have you here today. You and I have kind of got to know each other through a friend, and I've learned about your business history, your background, but I want to talk about that because it really does give good context for what you do now and your passion clearly for professional and personal development, coaching, and I think it's fascinating. But let's talk about your beginnings in business, if you don't mind, or in work. What did you do prior to getting into the pest control business? What was your background?
So I worked for a software company and I actually did customer service training where I helped onboard people onto the software platform, like
Okay.
getting the software set up, and then answered support, taught training classes, answered support questions, all those different things in my original career. And that's actually what got me into the pest control business, which is kind of a
That is
strange
an odd connection.
direction,
So how did
right?
that happen?
So my father bought a pest control business, an existing pest control business, as an investment, purely an investment. And they had manual books and processes. And so I said, what, it's 20th century. Come on, Dad, you need to be on computers. And so he had me come in to computerize the books for the pest control businesses. And I ended up falling in love with the customer service aspects of the business and never left.
Wow. So it brought you from there. So was there one location at the time or one business, or were there several different locations? And
So we had 5 locations at the time, and
Okay.
we were in 3 different states. So
Oh,
the
wow.
locations were quite spread out. So systematizing and bringing in computer software helped simplify a lot of that operational stuff because of the different locations. And back then, we didn't have all the technology that we have today and the internet and all those things to tie them together.
Mhm.
So that, and it's just being on a computer and being able to pull reports really helped. We
That's a
had
big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big deal. We had the big old server and everybody connected to the server, all that old technology. So it was
So why,
interesting.
I'm just curious, why I've heard pest control as an investment before,
Mhm.
and I've heard people that, kind of start without any kind of background in it. What is the attraction to that? Why would that be something that people kind of gravitate towards?
So pest control has a really icky connotation, right? Like, who wants to be around bugs all
Yeah.
day, right? Because it's kind of like, yeah, and people don't look to pest control as a potential career whatsoever. I mean, and the industry struggles with that from a branding standpoint and stuff. But we are providing an essential service. And so when you get in there and you realize that these customers, potential customers, have a need, and you could actually, improve their environment by making it a bug-free environment. And then you're attracting employees who um, come to work that weren't necessarily looking for a career. They were just looking for a paycheck
Good job. Yeah.
and a job, and they end up making a career out of it. And you end up changing their lives because they end up being of value to an industry and to people out there, because it is an essential business and they do make a difference in the service that they provide.
Yeah, and a lot of relief, because I think about over the years, calling on pest control companies or folks that come and help, and if you don't like it as a consumer, it's a big relief to know it's taken care of and
Oh
it's
yeah.
protected. So
There's a lot of fear around it, right?
yeah,
Because secret, women aren't the only ones who fear bugs.
yeah,
Men are like, a lot of men are afraid of spiders. It's kind of humorous.
yeah.
And even employees, I had technicians and stuff who actually had huge fears around spiders, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like,
You're in pest control.
yeah, have a fear around something maybe like a rodent or a snake or something like that. None of that bothered them. It was
Yeah.
more around
Interesting.
spiders. It was kind of
Wow.
interesting.
So you've seen all kinds at that time. Let's go back to when you were kind of coming in to help your dad. And so he had 5 locations, two states, and then you were helping kind of transition to computers. And then at some point, did you get involved with running the business itself and then begin to take that over? Because I know that's part of your story is building a very successful business.
Yes. So I first started with the offices and systematizing what went on in the office to streamline things and to just kind of make it easier and elevate the customer service aspects or the customer's experience with the office itself, and where that went. And then from there, so I worked with my first husband, and that was a challenge. And I think I resigned like 10 times in 1 year,
Yeah. So a big
And here
challenge.
it's my dad's business,
Yeah, exactly.
and my first husband came
Yeah.
to work to rent a location. And so we were looking for a manager in our Vero Beach location, and I just went, I'm taking the job.
You
Like,
did.
I didn't
Okay.
have to interview with it. I'm sure my
Sure.
dad wasn't going to say no, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm going to go run the Vero Beach office. And my husband's like, you don't know what you're doing. Like, how are you going to run an office? And I just, don't give me a good challenge. So I was just like, watch me.
Yeah, the competitor in
The
you.
competitor.
That's one of the things I've seen in you is like the go-getter competitor side, but so that drove you to go, okay, I can go do it.
I can go do this.
Yeah.
And so he was right in a lot of aspects because I had no idea what I was doing. I had always just worked in an office, systematizing, support, teaching type of environment. And so I had to learn. And I learned by making a lot of mistakes, having a lot of failures, figuring things out, asking a lot of questions. And one of my biggest frustrations was there wasn't a lot of outside support for that. Like, how do I
Meaning
learn
training
this?
or-
Meaning training.
Oh,
Like,
wow. Yeah.
how do I learn this? How do I learn, what to do and not recreate the wheel? There's a lot of successful pest control companies out there. What are they doing?
Yeah.
And so I started attending industry events
Okay.
and started more on a national level, even though they were state and local levels. It's like, why would I want to sit in there with my competitors kind of
Oh,
deal?
that's true. Yeah, yeah.
So I started on a national level, and I met some very successful people in the industry and just made the comment, well, if I'd have known I was going to be in this industry, I would have worked for one of the big guys like Orkin or Terminex, go work for one of the big guys. And it was Harvey Massey, who owned Massey Services. And he said, well, come in and visit. And I was like, whoa, like, you'd let me come in and visit? And he was
As
like,
an outside.
as an outside.
business? Really?
Yeah. And I
Interesting.
was like, wow, this is just so amazing. Don't offer unless you're serious, kind of thing. And so he's like, no, come on. So I went and spent 3 days at his organization, and they showed me everything. I mean, it was just everything. I mean, and I'm like, they're giving me all these resources and showing me all this stuff. This is just incredible. Well, I learned later, like, this is done throughout the industry.
Is it really?
It's crazy.
So it's almost like you're a competitor or somebody who's going to potentially take business from them in some way, but they don't They're like, come on in
Yeah.
and learn. Why do you think that's the case?
I think that those that are successful in the industry want to elevate the reputation of the industry. And
Okay.
so the more
Very cool.
professional I help you become as a smaller business, hey, one day I might be able to acquire you, right?
True. That's true.
Or, it just helps the whole reputation out there.
Incredible.
And we're all friendly competitors. There's plenty of business for all of us. Bugs aren't going away, right?
Right.
And people are moving in and houses are being built and areas are growing. I mean, I was a competitor of Massey. Now I was a much smaller competitor of Massey. But yeah, so it was amazing. And even as eventually, as I was able to stop working in my business and work more on it, I would go visit 1 to 2 pest control companies somewhere in the US every year and just kind of see how they did things and see what I could take away. And the whole philosophy, I remember hearing Mr. Cook of Cook's Pest Control one time say, it doesn't matter what I tell you, it's all about the execution. You've got to be able to execute
Gotta
it.
be able to do it. Yeah.
Got to be able to do it. And so that is so true. It's so true. Ideas are great, but we have to do something with the ideas.
I see people a lot of times try to take, oh, that was my idea, and but you're right. It's a great idea, but it's better, and it actually works when you do it. And so, one of the things I want to ask you though, when you were in this stage now you're running an office, small teams at your office, like just a handful of people, or how many people typically?
Small team. So the office I took over, there were 4 of us.
Okay.
So I couldn't hurt them too bad.
Yeah.
It was kind of my philosophy.
Yeah.
I couldn't hurt too bad, but we had a really good time and we became a really tight-knit family, and we all supported each other and we all developed and grew. Matter of fact, out of that original team, 3 of the 4 have their own pest control company today.
Okay.
So, and as they wanted to go that direction, so they grew within our organization because we grew that office to where when I left that office, I think there were 18 in that location. And when I went and took on a district level where I picked up the other Florida office and before I took over the whole organization, but they developed and grew. And then when they wanted to go out on their own, they actually came to me and they said, I want to do this and I want to do it right. I appreciate working for you and what I learned from you, but I want to do it right to where we stay friends. And so I ended up mentoring a couple of them and what they do. And there's one I still stay in touch with today.
That's super cool. That's really great. That's unique, I would say. And so that to me sounds a lot like, because you're a big culture person.
Huge.
And so that to me is the glimpse of what you ended up doing at your company and what you have a passion for now, which is to change and to help people understand the value of culture. What was like early stage? Was it books you read early on? Like what kind of got you into this whole kind of culture mindset? Because I think people miss that. I think it's something that, and when you don't have it, it's like you're in trouble and you don't realize it.
Definitely. So originally I didn't really know what culture was, even though I was doing it. And so the way I looked at it is, okay, I'm spending more time with these people than I spend with my family because I'm at work 8 hours a day. And then I had young children at the time. And so you get home and it's just crazy nuts and whew, I got them to bed and now I'm exhausted and I'm going to bed and then we start another day. So my whole thing was I have to really enjoy the people I work with and I want to have fun at work because I'm spending so much time here. And so, and I kind of have a confession. I am a little bit of a workaholic. So, I spent a lot of time there too. And it was like, but it has to be fun. I am spending more time with these people than even with my own family. So let's at least have a good time. And so I just created that let's have a good time kind of culture. And then later when I took on the rest of the businesses, so I got promoted to president and took on the entire operation for my father, I had 2 offices that I didn't enjoy going to, and I didn't know why. And I actually called them my redheaded stepchildren, which I know is horrible. And I have redheaded children, so I'm allowed to say that. I'm qualified to say that. And redheads definitely have different personalities, type of thing. And so I I couldn't figure that out. And later, when I started reading, I heard somebody speak on culture,
Mhm.
and then I started reading more about culture, and I started really diving into culture. And I read Delivering Happiness by the Zappos story,
Oh yeah.
which Zappos is huge into
Super known.
culture.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's why I don't like those offices. They don't have the culture that I want, and my other offices truly bled that culture.
Mm,
And so it's like that's what it is. It's just totally different.
yeah.
So we started putting the culture, the core values out there and who we were out there, and we started talking more about who we were and m- infiltrating it in the business so everybody lived by that.
That's cool.
And it just makes a huge difference. Just a
Did they?
huge
So did
difference.
people that you had on the team in those two offices, out of curiosity, was it a struggle to get them on board, or was that something they felt was they didn't know it was maybe missing, or how did that?
So yes and no.
Mhm.
So in one location, it was a total struggle, and it actually ended up with a complete turnover.
Mm, mhm.
In the other location, they were more open-minded and willing to learn. And so did we have a little bit um, of people learning to accept change? But what I found was we sat down and we kind of talked about it together, and we what do you like about this person, and why does this person work here, and what are the best qualities in the different individuals? And then I had the managers go visit the other locations that did have my culture,
Smart.
and what did you like about, and they were like, oh, it was so great. And it's like, what did you like about it, kind of deal?
Mm,
Well, the way the whole team worked together and everybody had a good time, and everybody was just, they were all the same, like it was like one team, one whatever. And I said, well, that's because they all live the core values. That's because they fit the culture. And when they don't fit the culture, they're traded for another team type of
yeah,
deal.
yeah, that's awesome. And so that began the process of really growing your dad's company. It
Mhm.
eventually became your company, or how did that work? And then eventually you got bought, you
Yes.
sold. So tell me about that journey.
Yeah. So my dad promoted me to president in August of 2006. In September of 2006, he was diagnosed with stage 4 sarcoma cancer. Um, he was given maybe 5 weeks to live. The doctor told him to go get his affairs in order. And he just kind of looked at him and said, okay, this isn't really an option. Like, so what are my other options? And they said, we don't really have a lot of options for you. You could go to Ketter or MD Anderson and see what they can do for you. So he said, well, it's September. Ketter's in New York. MD Anderson's in Houston. I think we'll go to Houston
Mhm.
because it's a little
A little
warmer.
warmer, yeah, yeah.
And he bought himself and my mom a one-way ticket to Houston.
Mm.
So in 1 week, he literally handed the entire business to me. So I knew operations. I knew how to run the branches. I knew how to run the actual, operations of the business, but I didn't know how to run it on a corporate level with the insurance and buying vehicles and the accounting and all the other things that, I just got my financial statements every month. I didn't have to worry about how they were
Behind the
produced
scenes,
and
yeah, yeah.
filing taxes and all the other things that are involved in owning a business. And so it was baptism by fire for a week. So he and I sat and we just went through every little thing that he
Wow.
handled in the company, and he kind of handed it off and said goodbye. And once a month I would go visit him. They actually ended up staying in Houston for 8 months.
Okay.
I would go once a month and visit and get information from him. And he ended up living in an additional 5.5 years. So they worked miracles and did some experimental stuff. And so it was great. So then I had him as a great mentor and resource to
Yeah,
breathe
yeah.
and go to the next level and have somebody to talk to about that. So it was a little
That's
crazy
amazing.
times.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was baptism by fire, but
Yeah.
it's cool that he got to be around. So he never came back and said, "Okay, I'm coming back in to take over." He let you at that point You
Yeah, well,
continue to run it.
my mom called and was like, "Can you do something with your dad? Because he's reorganizing the pantry and he's driving me nuts." Kind of, those kind of things. And I'm like, okay, so is he coming back in and taking over, or what is he doing? So I had him come back in and do some different audits. My dad was a accountant by trade.
Okay.
And so had him come in and just give a 30-foot view of things from a financial statement. Accounting's not my strength. I learned enough to be dangerous, right? But financial statements tell you a lot. So knowing that, so he went through and analyzed things of what he saw, and it ended up being a really good, gave him a little bit of
That's
purpose.
awesome. Yeah.
And so he only came in a couple days a week and played tennis the other days.
That's cool. That's really neat. What a neat experience. But you took that company at this point and you grew it. And tell me about when you began to kind of invest, because you really do invest in yourself a lot. I see the books you've got. We started working through your training program that you just filmed, which I want to talk about that. You had 10 of them with you, and you invest in yourself. What got you to do that? Because I don't see that as a common trait, and I don't know about your service and like the industry you're in, if that's common. But what drew you to that? And then eventually you got involved with Strategic Coach, I know. Tell me about that connection, because I think that'd be very useful for people who don't get it, who don't understand that.
So my first, I don't know, there's a lot to learn in a book. And I've always loved learning. And like I said, I was alone. I didn't have a way. I started going to these other companies and visiting. And I noticed when I went to visit Massey Services and some of the other companies that there were lots of books. And so I asked about them, and they're like, leaders are readers. And I'm like, okay, so I guess I need to start reading business books and start, learning from these business books. And then I had this gentleman come in. He cold called on me, came in my office. His name's Mark McGraw with Sandler Training, which is a sales training organization. And he came in and he was trying to get us to use him for sales training services. And I'm like, I don't know if I can afford this, and blah, blah, blah. And he made a comment about, you really need to invest in yourself and invest in your people. And there's no better investment than training. And so I thought about that for a while. And so I met with him again and went and saw his facility, and he had a wall full of books. And I'm like, okay, there's something here. Successful people seem to have a lot of books, and they're not for show. And so I ended up engaging services with him, and he also did manager training as well. So I learned a lot out of his training classes and put my people through it. And then I one day was talking to him and I said, okay, I need more for me. I feel like I need to develop more. And yeah, I'm learning a lot out of a book, but I need more of that personal coaching, personal learning and stuff. And I get a lot out of your class, but I need another level. I need more in sales and just management training. I need more leadership and entrepreneurial training. And so I said, I've looked at Vistage, and I also have heard of this company, Strategic Coach. And so I just am not sure if it's a lot of money, and is it worth the investment? And he says, I invest 10% of my income in myself every year. And I've been in Vistage for years, and I'm starting Strategic Coach next week.
Oh, happen to be starting it.
Yeah. Okay. And he goes, so I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah.
And so he came back to me and he said, knowing how you process and knowing how you think, I would definitely do Strategic Coach.
Yeah.
And over Vistage. And so I did. And that was in 2013.
Okay.
And so 11 years later, I'm still in Strategic Coach.
Do you remember the first impactful thing you learned when you first went?
Yes.
What was it?
Yes. So I said earlier that I was a workaholic. And so I was one that worked all day. It was hard for me I wasn't 8 to 5 by any means. I usually went in at 9, but I was the last one to leave because I would get so ingrained. And then the kids would go to bed and I might work some more. And on Saturdays I might work. And then once the kids grew up, I was always working till 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And I was working every Saturday, and I always talked work, and my kids will say, my son didn't come to work for me because he didn't want to hear about work all the time. He wanted a different relationship with me. And so I'm like, okay, when I went to strategic coach, they talked about time off. It wasn't all about working harder and working more hours and working, it was all about working smarter.
Hmm.
And it was about taking the time off to recharge and re-energize. And it doesn't matter how many hours you work, it matters what you get done while you're there.
Mm-hmm.
And that the business will survive without you. And you need to empower your people to do things. You can't do it all. You can't scale a business and you do it all. You've got to trust your people and have your people put the people in the right places who can do the things for you.
Yeah, you just said a mouthful. You said a ton of cool stuff. A lot of great advice right then. But I can see now that is part of kind of permeated what you do now. You eventually sold your business, but now you have kind of leaned into coaching others. Were you inspired by Strategic Coach and having a coach? Is that what made you go, man, I can actually pass this along and help people think about their life and their business?
Yeah, Strategic Coach had a huge impact on that decision. So within Strategic Coach, they do a thing called unique ability. And so I was intrigued by that because I kept learning more and more about myself. And the more and more I learned about myself, it's like, well, that's why I can't do that, or that's why this aggravates me, or that's why this person's better at it, and why I shouldn't be doing these things. And so I started giving more and more up, taking more and more free time. Really, our business grew more the more I took time off,
That's hilarious.
which was great.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, initially it's like they don't need me, but then it was like, yay, they don't need me.
Yeah.
So, but when I discovered my unique ability, it was okay. I am good at teaching other people and problem solving and driving change and things like that, which was what I was doing in my business. And so I used to speak at a couple small industry events, and I would have people afterwards come up and say, have you ever helped a company? Like, could you come in my business and help? And it's like, well, that might be fun. And so I did one or two of those and went, this is really fun. And the first time I did it, I was talking to my daughter, and I said, because she worked with me in the business eventually, and ran one of my businesses for years. And I said to her, I said, they're not going to pay me. And she goes, yeah, they are. I said, no, I'm going to feel really guilty giving them the invoice at the end of tomorrow. And she's like, why? And I said, because this hasn't been work whatsoever. It's been fun.
Because you loved it. Yeah.
And she goes, you're working in your unique ability. That's why it doesn't feel like work to you. And when I handed them when we were wrapping up at the end of the second day, they were like, this is the best money we ever spent. And I was like, oh,
there you go.
There you go.
Validation. That's awesome.
Validation. So maybe I should do more of this because it's a lot of fun.
That is great. And so you leaned in the pest control world to coach other owners, I guess, or other people that had that. Are you transitioning to do both that and other types of businesses yet?
Yes.
Or are you starting to do that?
Yes. So I started transitioning because business is business, right?
yeah.
So what I have found in friends, making friends that also are entrepreneurial or also have businesses, whether they're, running a boutique or a doctor's, they're a doctor running a medical practice or a lawyer or any of those types of things, that they too have business issues. And everything I learned from running and growing my business and exiting that business is the same challenges that they're having. So much of it can apply. So it's been fun to learn other industries and see how the business applies and all that stuff.
Oh, no, it's great. And so back to culture and tying that in real quick, because when you and I met and we talked about your desire to create a training program and take what you know so that it allows you to reach more people, essentially scale what you do. Culture was immediately a part of that. Vision, mission, coming up with the things that mean something. How did that affect your customers, do you think? When you had your business, do you think it was an indirect positive effect? I would imagine that your team, if they were living this culture internally, surely that bled out through impacting your clients and customers as well.
Well, 100%. So I was, our employees are our number one customer. And so if we treat our employees as if they are our number one customer, then they take it to the customer. So I didn't have to worry about how the customer was treated because it was filtered down from how the employee was treated. And yes, we had processes in place on how we wanted the customer to be, how we approached a home, and that we always knocked on the door and let them know that we were there, and certain things were required as a part of that service. But I never doubted that the customer was going to be handled poorly because of how we built that culture around the internal customer and treated the internal customer.
That's awesome. So that can apply to any business,
Sure,
anybody who's doing
100%.
that. Tell me the motivation behind creating $1 Million Climb and what that is.
So I was in the coaching process, I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I maybe quantify what I'm teaching, or lay out, what they're going to get out of my program from a marketing standpoint.
Okay.
Is where it kind of first started, is like, how do I market this?
Yeah.
Hi, I can talk all day and give you
Coach you.
and coach you, and I'm a good problem solver, and I love putting systems in place and blah, blah. So I started laying some things down that, businesses need to be successful, and what were the things that made my business successful, and looked at the different parts and was brainstorming it out with my husband and my daughter. And it was like, well, that's how you get to your first million or your next million. And then it was like, well, why don't we call it the $1 Million Climb? So it was just kind of a fun brainstorming session around it.
And are most of the businesses that are in your industry or the industry you came from, is there a high percentage of people that reach the $1 million because that's the first threshold, or do you find that as like very few people get there, so they really do need to know certain things that will help them get
Yes. So the majority of our industry 80% of the industry might get to that first million. And so that 20% sits in the $1 million to $10 million range, and there's quite a small percentage that goes up even higher. So there's that huge group of people that, they're either a one-man, one-woman operation, and they're tired of working in the field, and they want to bring employees in, but they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to hire. They don't know how to manage that employee, train that employee, and even trust somebody else to do the stuff for them. And so, that's one first big hurdle, is to go from that person operation to the next. And then even if they have 2 or 3 field technicians and stuff like that, how do they do what's necessary in their business to really take it to that next step, so that they're out of the field, so they can do some work on their business and have that business get goals set and achieve the goals and provide for their family and start living as a business owner instead of somebody who is owned by a business, because, and it starts becoming everything, and so many of them stop having a life because they're owned by their business.
So really what you're teaching, and even the basic building blocks that I remember you walking through with the $1 Million Climb, we use your word essential. It's essential to these businesses, but it's things that they may never have heard before.
Sure.
So to you, who's been with Strategic Coach now for, however many years and building the business, it's probably natural, but for them, I got to believe some of the light bulbs have to go on when they see that. So when you're training either one-on-one or with your new program on LeaderPass, it's got to be just an amazing moment to go, oh, I didn't know that.
Absolutely. And I look at it and go, if I had this available when I was starting in the industry, how much quicker could I have gotten to where I got, and maybe even bigger, type of deal, because I would have done it faster, more efficiently, a lot less mistakes, not as costly, because mistakes can cost money, and mistakes are great because we learn from them, but sometimes they're costly.
Yep. Well, let's talk about what's from here. Where do you see things going? I mean, you've sold your business. You still obviously have an amazing amount of knowledge. You love to teach and you're great at it. Where do you see the next few years?
So from selling my business, I obviously have the freedom of time, right? Like I really don't have to work. I do have the freedom of time to do whatever I want. I also have kind of the freedom of money to do what I want to do because, all problems can be solved. If you have money, they're not problems, right?
Right.
Type of deal.
Right.
But then it became, the where's purpose? Like, what is the purpose? And the industry for me, the pest control industry, brought me. It was good to me. It developed me. It turned me into a better person. I became a different person. I learned a lot. I have a ton of friends in that industry that are lifelong friends, and all over the United States. And I really love the industry, and so I wanna give back and provide what I learned, through my journey so that others could have a similar journey or a better journey and provide for their families the way I was able to provide for mine and for themselves because, I'm a totally different person from the journey I went through. And the more people I could help, that gives me purpose, for what I can do.
Well, I think a lot of people are going to be helped with this. I'm excited to see you release this and
Yeah, I'm excited to.
where it takes you next. I know you're capable on stage. I know you're capable one-on-one, and obviously a good teacher with what we're seeing you do digitally.
Mhm.
And I hope that scales to new heights for you. So congratulations on your
Thank you.
business, your success. Thank you for sharing what you've learned and from the culture side of things to how to uplift others, and then eventually with purpose to give back. So we've loved having you here, and I appreciate you coming.
Oh, I've enjoyed the entire experience, and the end product is amazing. So I'm really, really excited about it, and I'm really excited about getting it out there and having people grow their business.
Let's do it.